is looking to happen with exciting things ready for the Jetta race weekend. Aston Martin is coming with a couple of upgrades, but I got more information than just upgrades for you for this Aston Martin team. Aston Martin really surprised us in Bahrain. Not me, I had a lot of high expectations for them, so I'm happy that they performed. Even overperformed to many people's thoughts. But that wasn't actually a good race for them. They say their car is way more suited to a race like Jetta. Now the reason of that being is, Bahrain is a track where the actual way that the cars perform is rear oriented. Meaning, you got to be very careful on the throttle, you can't overextend on the gas or you can spin out very easily. I mean, look at turn 1. The way you have to compromise turn 1 going into turn 2 and 3, if you remember exactly what they were talking about, remember when Lance could not actually turn the car as much was needed to actually compromise their turn 1 to go into 2 and 3. The reasoning behind why they wanted Lance to do that was the car didn't have as much of a rear as they really wanted them to. So compromising turn 1 would obviously equal a straighter line and a better line to actually turn the car for 2 and 3. Now, tracks like Jetta, which is the next track upcoming and the track that Aston Martin obviously expects to perform a lot better in, their car is a lot more front-oriented. Front-oriented usually correlates to a guy like Max Verstappen, but if you followed Fernando throughout his whole entire career, he loves front-oriented cars. And a guy like Lance, who either dive bombs or defends like crazy, loves a front-oriented car as well. It results in deeper braking and actually being able to step on the gas a lot faster than most other cars on the grid. It results in a lot higher downforce, but it can also result in a very oversteery car in the back, so catching the car is very important. But for a guy like Fernando, who is very adaptable to any car, this really gives him a lot of leeway on how he wants to make his laps happen and what is the best way to extract the most performance out of the AMR 23. So a track like Jetta should come to show how good this AMR 23 is. And the tires should not be as important here. Sure, Red Bull and Aston Martin were the best teams when it came to tire management in Bahrain, and that will play in a very important factor throughout the whole entire year, really, with so many tracks on the grid this year. But more importantly, if you can last your tires super long on a track that's not very dependent on tire management, they can change up strategies. They can see how it's going for the others. Maybe go for a 1-stop, maybe go for a 2-stop. I mean, they probably won't need a 2-stop. I'm pretty sure that Jetta is usually classified as a 1-stop race, which is a medium to hard or hard to medium, depending on where you're located on the grid. But with all these things happening, and more to come from this AMR 23, some upgrades are coming. As I mentioned earlier in the video, there are a few parts that they want to add to this AMR 23. But the biggest thing for them is, and something that's been talked about multiple times over, is this AMR 23 is still a base car. They just made this. There is so much more to be added to it, and already reports from Fernando Alonso himself, Dan Follows himself, on why the actual car will look 75% different in comparison to what they had in the beginning of 2023. Now, it's very exciting to hear that because that means that there's so much more potential to this car. How much more can really be extracted from this AMR 23? Well, clearly a lot if you're going to change up 75% of the car. A couple of parts coming in Jetta, front-oriented track. It will result in better racing. Sure, we will maybe lose out a little bit on that straight line speed, but they did talk about the actual car in Bahrain having to be pretty heavily downforce loaded and having a bigger rear wing and doing a couple more things to the front wing to actually make sure that the tires last a lot longer, because Bahrain is an important track when it comes to tire management. Clearly we saw that as to how badly the Ferrari fell due to its tires and Mercedes not being able to actually keep up because of its tires. That doesn't mean that the AMR 23 doesn't have better strong suits. The whole track Jetta mainly is straights, but Sector 1 is very focused on high speed corners and medium speed corners. And from statistics and what they were picking up in Bahrain, the actual Aston Martin car was stronger than the Red Bull on medium speed cornering. Most of the track in the very beginning is medium speed corners. You do have your high speed corners, but There are a couple of medium speed corners also at the end of Sector 2 and the very end of Sector 3. So that Aston Martin under braking will be very strong. Even going into turns like turns 1, 2, and 3 will be very strong for the Aston Martin. It actually was the best car under braking, even over the RB19 in Bahrain. With a guy like Fernando Alonso leading this team and really being confident and motivated now to take this team to that next step, what can Aston Martin really do? Can they really take the fight to Red Bull soon enough in the season? Well, I'll tell you this, if the stars align and Red Bull doesn't upgrade as much as they think they can, Aston Martin can take it to them. They're a team that has over 40 hours more than the Red Bull team in the wind tunnel. Now that is huge, especially when you have a guy like Dan Fallows. And I feel like I use his name a lot, but we gotta remember, this guy is the prodigy of Adrian Newey. Red Bull was very adamant on not letting Dan Fallows leave, but he left on his own and wanted to actually see if he can compete against one of the GOATs like Adrian Newey and the other guys that are in the sport like James Allison. He wanted to take the fight to him, and clearly he is already showing what this car can do. With 37% more wind tunnel time, they will have a lot of chances to actually try many things, develop the car a lot faster, and pick up on what are the right setups and where the car will be extracted fully. Like I said, medium speed corners and braking is where this car excels at. So we can expect Jetta to be a great race for them, but it will be a very competitive one. I will actually make a video coming out on Thursday, I want to say, matching up all the teams and which ones I think will perform better in Jetta over Bahrain and where I think their strengths and weaknesses actually lie. So really analyzing where all these teams are strong at. As for Aston Martin, I'm super excited. This is a big year, and if you really want to be excited for 2023, then you got to be watching now for Fernando Alonso and what he can do in a car that's finally given to him that can actually perform well on the track. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you guys think that this Aston Martin AMR 23 actually has the potential to take it to Red Bull? Can they outperform their car or even perform it to as strong as the RB19 in the Jetta Grand Prix? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Please leave a comment. I love responding to you guys. Honestly, this is always somewhere where I want us to respond and have conversations. So please comment, like, subscribe. You guys mean the world, and peace.